Hey vinyl people, I'm Don Wilkins and welcome to another video, and today we're going to be talking about inexpensive 80s albums. So stick around, you're watching Bow Records. Hey, welcome back. I'm Don Wilkins with Bow Records, a mobile and social media vinyl shop based out of Owensboro, Kentucky. And just as I said in the intro, we're going to be talking about inexpensive 80s albums. Mostly pop here, but some rock mixed in. And, with all the talk about how expensive records are these days, new ones, at the big box store, $20, $25 and up. Um, you know, and then you also have the reissues that are the same prices. And the good news is that some of these records that we're going to be talking about have been reissued, and these are the originals, okay? And these are records that you can get for half that price, and sometimes even cheaper. Even at record stores, these records are usually $10 and under. In the vinyl world, we'll talk about low end and high end records. Some may think it's $20 and under. Some may say it's 15 and under, but most of the time, it's $10 and under for a quote low end record. So I'm going to give you some options here, some recommendations on what to look for whenever you're out and about. And this is just a small sample of some of the inexpensive records out there. And I'm just going to get started with one of my favorite albums, which is Men at Work, their debut album, Business as Usual, with the hit Who Can It Be Now, and then of course their signature song Down Under. Great song and a fun song. Anytime you can rhyme Brussels with muscles, you're having fun. And they just did it well. And I love all of Men at Work's albums, but if you don't have any other albums, at least have this one in your collection. Just a great debut album by Men at Work, and that album came out in 1982, by the way. Next album is Juice Newton, her album called Juice from 1981, and this kind of comes in three categories as far as genre. You're talking rock, country, and a little bit of folk in this. You can kind of see that she's wearing the cowboy boots, and pretty cool album cover. You see a lot of corny 80s album covers. This one, is, it reflects her. It's her style, and so it has the two hits, Angel in the Morning on it, and Queen of Hearts, two great songs. And in this one, you can find pretty readily available. So I found this one in great shape. I don't remember what I paid for it, but I can tell you it was under $10 when I got it. Next up, another great artist, Billy Ocean. His album Suddenly has the hits actually, Loverboy and Caribbean Queen. And we always had that debate on, is it Caribbean or is it Caribbean? I think Billy Ocean settled that debate with this song. And this is also interesting because this isn't kind of a, there's two versions of this album cover out there. You have this one, which is more of a photograph, and then I'll show you this one. And this is more of an etching of the same album. They both have hype stickers. This one actually has a third hit on it, Syncopation, and so I think that sort of tells you that this one came out after the fact, because this one has the other hype sticker on it, and it only has the two songs on it, Loverboy and Caribbean Queen. So, more than likely this came out. Both of them came out in the same year, 1984. So, but sometimes they'll do that whenever you have an album that does really well, and they'll repress in that same year. For example, they did that. Well, they did it with Guns N' Roses, but their first album cover was more controversial than anything. So they came out, with the alternate version, with the cross and the skulls that everybody are familiar with. Next up, the pop duo Hall & Oates. This is their album H2O from 1982. Has the great song on it, probably their signature song, Man Eater. Also has a great ballad on there called One on One. And some people consider Hall & Oates kind of like a guilty pleasure, but they had several pop hits in the 80s, and I have several of their albums in my collection, and I just enjoy them. They're a great pop group from the 80s, and another record you can pick up, usually pretty cheap, just about any secondhand store or even a record store, will sell these $10 and under. Next up, one of my favorite girl bands, the Go-Go's, Beauty and the Beat, from 1981. This album, pretty sentimental to me just because of the song We Got the Beat. They used to play that at the skating rink a lot that I used to go to. It also has the song Our Lips Are Sealed. That's one of the great things about collecting these vinyl records, is that because there are memories attached to them, and so anytime I come across a record that I can relate something to from my childhood, that's reason enough. Even whenever it's a cheaper record like this. So the Go-Go's, a great 80s album. Next up, Survivors, Eye of the Tiger. This actually came out in 1982, and a lot of people associate this with Rocky 3, and for good reason. But it had the album that actually came out, I believe, a year ahead of the movie, and it's still played in rock arenas today, and everybody knows that opening riff, and when you hear it, and that's when you really know as a band that you've done something, and nothing wrong with it at all. And this is another album that you find pretty regularly out in the wild, and the group, it has the silhouettes of the band members inside the Eye of the Tigers there. So a little interesting detail about this album cover. So Eye of the Tiger from 1982. Next up, Billy Squier, Emotions in Motion. That's the name of the album and one of his hit songs. This album came out in 1982. Also has another great song on it, Everybody Wants You. I love that song. It's a cool song. This album is a great rock pop album. It may even be more just rocky to me, and I love just about everything he put out. Yeah, I guess a little sidebar about Billy Squier. 2 years after this album, he came out with the Signs of Life album. Had the hit song "Rock Me Tonight" on it, and it's a great tune. But unfortunately, he made a horrible video for that song, and it's attributed to the demise of his career, which is crazy because that was in the heyday of MTV, and MTV did more to help bands' careers and artists' careers than it ever did to hurt it. I mean, ZZ Top was one of the big benefactors of videos. They were a known band even before MTV, but whenever they started making their videos, with the cool car and and just their style, and it put them into another stratosphere. So just an unfortunate thing for Billy Squier. because he kind of dropped off the map after that video was made. It is a rough video, but he didn't deserve have his career ended by that video. So next up, another band, maybe in the same vein as Survivor, but nonetheless, Loverboy. Their album here, loving every minute of it. This album's from 1985. Probably my favorite Loverboy song. Maybe not my favorite Loverboy album as a whole, but I do love this song. It's another one of these kind of rockish songs that has a cool riff to it, and all of Loverboy's albums. You can pick most of their albums up. Again, this is a $10 and under record usually. If you find this record, and this one's in pretty decent shape, $10 would be the max on a record like this. But most of the time, it's going to be under that. So next up, another great girl band from the 80s, the Bangles. This song, their songs on here, Manic Monday, and of course Walk Like an Egyptian. This album titled A Different Light. And this album came out in 1985, and Manic Monday, a good song, but of course they had the Walk Like an Egyptian, kind of a novelty kind of song. They had a video, the band, they had you doing this number, the Walk Like an Egyptian. If I'm even close, been a long time since I've seen the video, but it was it was a pop hit for them. Not necessarily my favorite song by the Bangles, but it's just one of those great iconic 80s albums. So the Bangles. Next up, another great female artist, Pat Benatar. Her song here, or her album here, Crimes of Passion, from 1980, has the song Hit Me With Your Best Shot on it. Of course, another song that you still hear today, played in sports arenas. And Pat Benatar is, I don't know why her albums sell for so little, but they do. Hit Me With Your Best Shot, to me it puts this album over the top, and it's just a great tune to get you fired up, especially if you're into sports. Next up, I actually came across this album not too long ago. It's the Miami Sound Machine, Primitive Love from 1985. Conga and Bad Boy are the two hits off of this. And Gloria Estefan, she a great solo act as well. And this is just one of those 80s albums. Conga, the song You Couldn't Get Out of Your Head. And that was the thing about with a lot of these 80s songs. They had these melodies that you just couldn't get out of your head, and you would sing them for days and days, and hear them on the radio 24/7. And this is just one of those albums that had a couple of those type of songs on it. Next up, for me, this may be the poster child for 80s pop songs. Two of my favorite 80s pop songs are on this J. Geils Freeze Frame. Okay, it also has the hit on it, Centerfold. This is an album from 1981, and you can't get more 80s pop than Freeze Frame or Centerfold. And the J. Geils Band, they were around before this album, and around for a while. But this album, gave them the hits and the mainstream popularity that they were able to do something with. But you see this album all the time for cheap. maybe $5, under on this album. Um, top price $10, but they would have to be, almost, mint condition to find that, for album for $10. So next up, not going to get much more iconic than this album and this artist, Lionel Richie. Can't Slow Down, from 1983. This was a monster album for Lionel Richie. This is, I think, the second album, his second solo album, and it had at least 4 hits on it. You're talking All Night Long, Penny Lover, Stuck on You, and Hello. Of course, he later became an American Idol judge, and he's just an iconic singer in and of himself. But you can find this album everywhere and anywhere, and always $10 and under. No matter how great, no matter even if it's sealed, you're probably not going to pay more than $10 for this album. So, Lionel Richie, just a great 80s pop album. Next up, the band Yes with their album 90125. The main hit off of this is Owner of a Lonely Heart. Another 80s song when you hear it, and it was the main hit off of this. Yes is probably of all the records I've shown, probably didn't have as much success as some of these others, but that's okay. It's still, if you're looking for great 80s bands and a song that represented the 80s, Owner of a Lonely Heart definitely fits the bill. Next up, Kim Carnes, Mistaken Identity, from 1981. And this record has the song Betty Davis Eyes. She kind of has that that sultry kind of voice, and I love that song, and for whatever reason, it's just one of those 80s tunes that whenever you hear it, you can't not help but to like it. And I like this whole album, but of course Betty Davis Eyes is the signature song on this, and you see this a lot everywhere you go. So don't overlook it if you're looking to add to your 80s collection. Next up, Steve Winwood from 1988, Roll With It. So it also has the hit Don't You Know What the Night Can Do, another great song. And this album, like I said, came out in 1988. Around that time, 88, 89, is when you started seeing vinyl sales starting to drop off. Fewer and fewer vinyl starting to be made in favor of CDs, and maybe even tapes, cassette tapes. So as you get into the late 80s, especially into the early 90s, this was not one of them as far as being rare or one of those albums that are in high demand. But that's what drives up a lot of prices on some of these bands, because the vinyl is in such short supply. CDs of the same album, find them anywhere, but the albums, they just made fewer volume of it, and so as you got into the late 80s, early 90s, that's why those prices tend to go up on those type of albums, because of fewer of those albums were made. The next album, last but not least, and this to me is the album, kind of like Rumors from Fleetwood Mac. If you're looking for the album that from the 70s that you gotta have, Rumors is one of those albums. Well, from the 80s, Tina Turner's Private Dancer. If you're collecting 80s albums, 80s pop, you know, Private Dancer. I mean, it's got to be on your want list. Uh, Another one of these monster albums. And of course, she was making music way before this. She and Ike Turner. Um, but you have Private Dancer. What's Love Got to Do with It? Let's Stay Together. Um, I mean, just great songs on here. Lisa Hype Sticker. I mean, you got 5 hits on this song or on this album. So, um, in this album you can find. I mean, it's not a rare record by any means, and so you can usually pick this. And now this album will tend to, it could get up to, $15 even depending on the condition. But typically you're going to find it under that price point. But because it is a little higher demand album, but it's worth every penny. It's just a great album by Tina Turner. So, and that album came out in 1984. And for now, I guess that will do it for the inexpensive albums from the 80s. It's one of those things. It's one of these ways that I have built my collection around, and didn't have to dig deep to do it. And if you're out and about and looking, whether it be for yourself or for someone else who that are who loves 80s music like I do, you won't go wrong with any of those albums. So also, before we end here, I want to give a shout out. The new merch I'm wearing here. My old friend Dustin Bratcher did the logos for me, and my sister-in-law April Durbin hooked me up with the t-shirts. So much love to them, and I appreciate them helping me push me along in this little endeavor of mine. And also, the best thing you can do right now is subscribe to the channel and hit the little bell so that it alerts you to any new videos that I put out. And we're trying to put out at least once a week, and just on different topics regarding vinyl. So I guess that's it for now. I'm Don Wilkins for Bold Records. I'm out.